Джастин, я хочу, чтобы что у тебя дом есть. И вот твоя комната, где ты игрался, и вот рояль, и ты играл на этом рояле. Вот твой дом, и никакой не другой дом. Ты должен это знать. Вот это то, что у тебя, и вот твои рисунки. И это вся моя жизнь. Понял? Это вся моя жизнь. Не волнуйся, и школа за тебя, и мои родственники за тебя. Мы тебя вытащим оттуда. Ты не можешь там долго сидеть, это абсурд просто. Но я тебя целую, пока.
What I think we should really celebrate is the fact that we've now had another record rise in adoptions, another 26% rise, over 63% rise since 2011. And that means, rather than just over 3,000 children finding their adoptive family, that's now over 5,000 children.
Когда вот у меня концерты, и у меня все получается, я чувствую себя гипнотизером. Что чувствую, я даже публика, могу им говорить то, что вот я хочу, они мне нить такая образовывается между мной и слушайте. Когда его забрали, у меня прошел год совершенно вырванный, понимаете, я себя поймал мысль, что я не могу вообще, не могу не играть, и меня, наверное, я за год даже ни разу не улыбнулся вообще. Я жил в Москве с 18 лет, я закончил Московскую консерваторию, аспирантуру был в армии, работал, вот. У меня были приглашения из Нидерландов давать, значит, концерты, я туда переехал, вот, жил там 5-6 лет, потом я приехал в Англию, потому что больше, казалось, больше возможностей. По статистике 5% из родителей только забирают ребенка. Когда вынесли финальный приказ суда, был вынесен, что он там будет жить до совершеннолетия, до 18 лет. И Гардиан, значит, тот человек, который должен якобы его интересы выражать, стала и сказала, что будущее находится в приемных родителей, и мы ожидаем, что отец нам покажет помощь. Я оказался редчайшим исключением, потому что вместо того, чтобы подавать апелляцию, я пошел на публичные протесты. Некоторые борются, но мало кто. Это какое-то рабское состояние, просто полнейшее, абсолютное. Когда я стоял с этим плакатом, ко мне подходили англичане, выражали свое сочувствие. Вот. Я просил какие-то, вот, телефон давал, свой никто мне не позвонил.
The first decision is the child safe to stay in their family. If there are concerns that they're not safe, the concern might be by neighbours, by schools, by doctors, by social workers, and it goes to the courts. And the courts then have to make a decision about whether this child should stay with the family or not. And if the courts agree that the child should move away from the family, then they become the responsibility of the state and they are placed for fostering or adoption.
The words forced adoption are used for cases where children are removed from one family and placed with another, adopted, and that's not consented to by the parents of the children. And international law says that it should be very rare that this happens, yet to the 31st of March 2014, there were over 2,000 children forcibly taken from one family to another. Social workers are instructed by their management even if the family is a good family, competent family to looking after a child, to advise the court to get the child adopted. So in other words, children have been removed from one family and placed with another family and forcibly adopted merely to satisfy government targets. In the case of the McDougalls, they had 2 children. Kerry McDougal was deemed by the authorities in Scotland to be not sufficiently intelligent or too stupid to get married. And then she was deemed to be too stupid to look after her children. So they left Scotland and went to live in Ireland.
I met my wife through friends, and we'd been together for about 3 or 4 months when she became social work told me that if Kerry was to have the baby, they would take the baby at birth. So both social workers told me there's no point in Kerry having this baby. It's better for her to have an abortion. It was a very easy decision to flee, because at the end of the day, when if a social worker tells you you're going to lose your child, you'll do anything to keep your child. Even if you had to flee to the other end of the earth, you would do it. We lived happily in Ireland for 4 years until one day my wife had a miscarriage. So we decided to go home for family support for my wife. We met with Scottish social workers before we went home, just to make sure that they wouldn't take the children when we go home. The Scottish social workers promised us that they wouldn't take the children, that they would only support us if we asked for support. But the day we arrived back in Scotland, 2 social workers arrived at the door and initiated child protection proceedings to take the children away. We've got permission to talk about our case thanks to John Hemming going into Parliament, using parliamentary privilege to open our case up. So it means the social work department can't shut us up, basically. We're going to Scotland today because we have a court case in Dunfermline Sheriff Court tomorrow. So we're about to fly on the plane from Dublin to Edinburgh. It's quite nerve-wracking, to be honest. I didn't get much sleep last night. Going to Scotland because I've got 2 breach of the peace charges for. I've made a complaint to social workers over the telephone because a social worker in Scotland actually walked into my child's nursery, my 4.5-year-old son, and she questioned my son without my permission. This was a breach of our privacy. It was also against the law. It was against. So I phoned up to complain about that, and the social worker, because I'd phoned up to complain, to counteract that, she phoned the police and said that I had been threatening towards her on the phone. This is a video of Ben, and he's telling me that he doesn't want to live in Inverkeithing anymore because the social workers might come and take him away. He says we have to get a new house. So that we can get away from these social workers who are trying to take us away. You know, that's the final thoughts of a 4.5-year-old going to bed at night.
And the social worker won't even find us, because we'll be far away, we'll be in our roof, and they don't know where our roof is, even the police.
Can you comment something about McDougal's case?
I don't know.
Mark and Kerry McDougal, because...
Oh, that's the adoption, the adoption without consent.
Kerry,
yeah. I don't know specifics about that case. I mean, it's very difficult to comment on any particular case without knowing all the information around it. People have confidence in the system and that they don't feel persecuted or somebody makes a decision and ticks a box and that's it, your child gets taken away. I mean, I used to say when I managed a team of social workers that if only people knew how hard it really is, to remove a child. It's the absolute last thing we do.
Or both parents within the family court. There are targets of 1,000 children to be removed a month by forced adoption. We are here with Truth and Justice, who have been here for 18 months now, standing our ground for truth and justice.
When we went to court, I thought it would be a fair system like it would be in the criminal trial evidence. No, it's just their word against yours and their word is king. My hope is that one day I'll be able to go back and fight for my children, the other two, and get them home.
Save British children from cruelty and abuse.
I think it was the 7th or 8th of November 2012. They came to hospital and demanded to take her off us and removed us from hospital. And then on 12th of November, she got removed from that foster carer to another because the foster carer burnt my daughter at 3 months old.
And we are here, the UK parenting protest. They have got our kids. Social workers commit perjury to remove children. Let's make them hold the horns! Hold the horns, guys! They are taking our children, and they can come for yours.
They took 2 of my children. Aaron is 5 and Faith is 4. I was thrown into the 26-week court process. They used false information to take my children. They then used the fact that I have a physical condition to say that my children would grow up to be my carers.
Open up the family court! Stop the silence!
One of the most common reasons that they have in the UK is they say risk of future emotional harm. Now, how do you quantify that? That's almost impossible to quantify, but a lot of people lose their children because the social services and the courts say there's a risk of future emotional harm. The way in which you can get your children back once you've had a final hearing in court is quite difficult. People very rarely win appeals. The appeal system isn't set up for people to win.
And this is happening all around the UK. A child taken every 20 minutes. Parents are thrown into a 26-week court process and they are coming out with their children on long-term foster care or placed for forced adoption.
А будешь омлет есть? А? Ты хлопья будешь? История была вот какая, что я поехал в Таиланд на каникулы. Там встретила его мать. У меня с ней был довольно короткий, значит, романс. Я потом уехал обратно. Она мне известила по имейлу, значит, что она ожидает ребенка. Вот, я не мог его там бросить. Вот, я приехал туда, значит, там ДНК-тест это все, значит, подтвердил. Так, ранец бери. Я просто не мог его оставлять там, у него там не было никакого ни будущего, и он там, в принципе, никому особенно не нужен. Поэтому я по решению суда Таиланда и Нидерландов, он получил голландское гражданство и приехал сюда, я помню, 1 мая 2006 года. А в 2012 году, опять же, зная их закон, было 9 лет 7 месяцев, нет такого четкого. Вот. Я его оставил дома вот одного, поехал к своему этому, как сказать, налоговику. Я отсутствовал 4 часа. Был где-то жаркий день, к нему мальчик, дети, мальчики, понимаете, перелез мальчик через, значит, забор к нему дома, начали играться, с увеличительным стеклом они играли, опыты ставили. Значит, и мальчик, этот вот англичанин, он, значит, поджег сарай.
Итак, мы с вами начнем с повторения словарных слов.
Приехали пожарные, затушили пожар. Он не был в опасности ни в каком времени, потому что он через забор перелез. Мы забрали, значит, по закону на 72 часа, бросили тут же в фостер-кэр, меня, значит, арестовали, выпустили. Расписка он не выйдет.
Этот заяц пострельный.
В дело включились социальные работники, которые начали строить свой, значит, случай.
Первое слово. Шоссе. Джейсон, по слогам. Угу. 2 «С». Молодец. Давай, Лен, дальше.
Он жил 15 месяцев в фостер-кэр у приемных родителей. Место его пребывания для меня было неизвестно.
The worst thing was probably the other girl that was fostered with them. She had Down syndrome, and she had a tendency of always coming into my room and asking what was going on. Another thing was the baby that was going to be adopted who lived there as well. I couldn't really sleep at night because all I heard him doing was crying or getting a toy and hitting it against the wall. I was pretty sure that I still got back to my dad because I knew he was trying his hardest to get me out of there.
Ошибка в другом месте. Кто нашел? Джастин. Совершенно верно. Джастин молодец, сегодня очень внимательный.
Я никогда, ни при каких обстоятельствах, я никогда себе не представлял, что я его любой ценой не заберу обратно. Я не знал, как я это сделаю, но я знал, что я это сделаю. Видимо, социологи поняли, что я не остановлюсь ни перед чем, и они пошли какие-то вот такие вот: давай, Евгений, мы тебе его вернем, пройди там курс семейного там работника. Ребенка мне вернули в октябре, и с меня сняли все эти криминальные обвинения по неглекту. Но я начал замечать, как ему сильно на него подействовало вот это пребывание в фостер-кэр. У него, конечно, произошли изменения. Было видно, что он не такой ребенок, какой он был раньше.
Adoption works, and we've now got some really good, strong, robust is the word that they like to use in the department, data that demonstrates that the breakdown rates of adoption are much lower than was previously thought, around about 3% rather than about the 1 in 5 that sometimes was being quoted.
This is the port through which most of the British families come into Ireland. This is Rossiter Harbour. They come here by ferry either as foot passengers or in their cars if they have a car. And I will meet them either here, or if they're driving I may meet them up in Wexford, which is about 20 minutes away. So this is the point where they first place their feet on Irish soil. I believe that the child protection system, child protection in quotation marks, because of course it's not far from child protection, I believe that that has introduced a system of fascism. I retired from working as a journalist and writer about 7-8 years ago, and I began to do human rights work. And I had a website called ectopia.org, and I expanded it to cover parents in trouble with social services. Since mid-2013, 200 families have contacted me looking for help. 40 families in that time have come here, some with children and some coming here pregnant to have their babies here. In a state of panic and lost, you can't think properly, make all kinds of mistakes and do stupid things because they're not thinking right. I help them get a cheap place and to spend a week or so recovering and learning the law and have a look at what the options are. Now that's the safe house, as we call it, the barn. Fine stone building, it's about 200 years old. It used to be for animals. There's a ring inside on the wall for the bulls and owls. When my late wife and I retired down here 20 years ago, we converted it, we put in windows. I'll put on some lights, although you probably have very good light on the camera. Well, the first thing we need them to do is, as quickly as possible, find cheap lodgings, because obviously they can do that in a few days. They often they can do that in 3 or 4 days. I think the older you are and the more alone, and the fact you become a widower, I think that gives you a certain amount of independence, that you can take risks and do things that I don't necessarily want to say too much about myself. Social services are saying the state knows best and families cannot be trusted and parents are a threat to their children. I and my colleagues say evolution has decided, not the state, that the best people look after children are the parents. Up to 5 years ago, there was the only abuse was physical abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse, and we'd put this physical abuse and neglect in the same category. So then there were 2,500 cases each year reported to social services in the UK of physical abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse. 2,500 causes for intervention. Over the 5 years, a new category has come into being called emotional abuse. And last year there were 13,800 cases of emotional abuse involving social services intervention, because this is the result of an unholy alliance between social workers and the psychiatric profession.
Then there's also the concern about the capacity of some parents, and it's become particularly contentious around adults with learning difficulties as to what is their capacity to parent children. And again, some judgments are being made by medical profession and others that some parents should not even be given the chance to parent because people are not confident that they have the capacity to parent.
We've got William, who's 12, is my oldest, and Grace is 7, and then little Sam is just 5.
When all this sort of first started, we did take a holiday. We went to Ireland for 2 weeks. When we first left, we weren't sure whether we were taking a holiday or whether we were just not going to come back. At the time, we really didn't know what to do. The other parent went to the police to do what they call a Sarah's Law request, which is basically to check on his background. There was a false allegation against Darren a number of years ago by his ex-wife, which was proven to be false. They wanted to visit us in the early stages every 10 days to 2 weeks. They visited our children in school without asking our permission or advising us that that's what they were doing, which caused problems in itself. For a couple of weeks after that, Grace was actually scared to go into school. We came across so many stories of children being taken for the most spurious reasons, and of course once they have your children it's very difficult to get them back. But now our case is closed as far as social services is concerned, and you know, we will carry on with our legal action against them. But as I say, if there's a knock at the door and I'm not expecting somebody, it's scary, and I can't do that anymore. So we would consider, you know, in the right circumstances, financially and what have you, we'd consider leaving the country.
And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people don't know how to react when they first come into their lives. You know, they think, well, you know, we haven't done anything wrong, so we would just, you know, we just work with them, and that's one of their favourite phrases that they use, you know, work with us, and that they don't want to work with parents. You know, they want to misrepresent them, lie about them. You know, we have learnt an awful lot, so where we can, we share and support people. I've put together people's court paperwork for them. I'm always researching the law because there's so many instances where the law is broken.
I mean, this is one of the letters that we did to the Minute, Darren. This is the one that we did where we asked them.
They accused us of me abusing the 7-year-old. They accused Catherine of having an incestual relationship with what would have been her 10-and-a-half-year-old son then.
Tried to say that Lucas was his father, didn't they?
Yeah, because he had Down syndrome. They were saying that Lucas was Jonas's father. We had to disprove that, which we did. We had no words with that. For 6 to 7 months while he was in care, we kept saying to people he was in serious trouble. I went and fought the interim care order on the 4th of October with my solicitor, saying he's covered in bruises, he's ill all the time, he's sick, the dog's jumping, he's constantly,
sore bottom, didn't
he was coughing and choking all the time because
diarrhea.
And the foster carer said no, he doesn't have that anymore. Yet he was taken in on the 8th of October waking up not being able to breathe. And now it's been proved that when he had his autopsy, because he eventually died in foster care, he had the rotavirus, which is caused from dog faeces, which he was constantly coming into contact, stinking of dog mess.
This is part of my diary. He was still sleepy in the car. They took him inside to wait for the foster carers. His face was flushed and he was very hot to the touch. He was so hot that he had wax leaking from his ears. He could not see out of his right eye as it was stuck together with nasty green matter and crusty discharge known as conjunctivitis. So, you know, and that was what he looked like. Thinking about Kerry, how's she doing?
Well, she's really not well at the moment because she's stressed.
Right.
So it's causing physical symptoms and the pregnancy's suffering because of it.
I'm not Mark's lawyer and I leave the legal side of things to the lawyers. However, my understanding is that he's pleaded not guilty to a charge. Quite a minor charge, by the way, a charge that the social worker has brought against him, and which certainly the solicitor believes is a malicious allegation.
This way.
Yeah, don't worry. About 5.5 years ago, their troubles started. Kerry went into hospital, had the child, and within a few days, the baby was taken off of her because of concerns passed on from social services in Fife. And it was at that point we became involved because we as an organisation at Nursing Matters advocate for breastfed babies where authorities are interfering with the relationship, and our involvement has continued to this day. There's some possibility that the case can be thrown out, and that's because John Hemming MP said in Parliament that the case was vindictive, and being vindictive is not a good reason to bring a case. So it may be that we can get the witness statement discredited on that basis.
I'm here for quite a minor breach of the peace trial, and it's against social workers in Scotland who took my children away. And I'm here today to basically defend myself.
Too many find themselves on a conveyor belt of care, being shunted from one placement to another, being returned home too quickly to once again face the dangers that originally demanded their removal, being forced to leave care at 16, much earlier than most young people would be left to fend for themselves.
So now I will pass you to Justin. Well, there is actually, I will tell you know that he was filmed today by Russian Today. In his Russian, I'm not going to hide anything about it. I have to tell you also, they are filming me now. Actually, I'm also not going to hide this. I also have to tell you.
Okay, right. I'm going to ask Justin about this, but he may not talk to me about it, so I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah, do you want? I will leave a room. I will leave a room so you can talk to him on the start, whatever you like. You see.
Hello.
Hi, Justin. It's Zoe. Hi. Sorry, I'm calling you so late. You've been to Russian school today, have you?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a few questions to ask you before tomorrow. Is there anything you wanted to say to me before we finish, or do you understand what's what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, I know what's going on. Yeah, I think they should conclude it.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get your hopes up. I think there's a good argument that the case should just be finished tomorrow, but I don't know that the judge will be persuaded to finish it because...
Суд назначает адвоката для ребенка по закону, который никогда не исполняется. Если ребенок не хочет этого адвоката, он имеет право просить другого адвоката, как должен быть. На практике это никогда не выполняется. То есть мы дали отвод. Мы нашли адвоката независимого. Она практически, понимаете, как она все равно не хочет не против, она советовала какие-то еще вещи, которые ей говорили социалы. Мы не пошли на какие эти уловки, вот, но она обязана донести его желание на самом деле. Она вот сейчас звонила в адвокат. То есть она вредит, по крайней мере, меньше, чем остальные. Ее понять тоже можно, потому что, идя против социала, она просто потеряет свою работу, свою лицензию, потеряет вообще все. Ее можно понять, так сказать, чисто вот по-человечески. Я раньше жил в центральном Лондоне. Во-первых, дома стоят гораздо меньше. Вот, во-вторых, это, как сказать, good quality, то есть хорошее то, что получаешь за деньги. Тут хорошие школы, и много англичан живут в этом районе. Вот. И до Лондона довольно считается близко, до центра Лондона. Поэтому это все придется бросить, если нам придется уезжать, и мне даже не будет жалко, абсолютно. Если его только бы спасти, и все. Да, меня могут арестовать, ну, конечно. Это от них можно всего ждать. Мне очень боязно, что будет с Джастином. Сейчас в суде будет рассматриваться дело о том, чтобы моего сына вернуть в фостер-кэр. Я буду настаивать на том, чтобы дело было прекращено. Дело в том, что уже полгода местные власти не могут предъявить никакого, по сути, обвинения, ничего, что может оправдать его перемещение. Если нужно, я готов идти за решетку за право защищать своего сына.
Who is it? Ah, look! She's having a roll, look! Connie's rolling! Yeah, she's happy. Look. Yeah, Thomas is having a drink, isn't he? He's having some water. It's my flag. Yeah, that's my flag. It's very significant to us because they've helped us. The Irish have helped us so much in so many ways.
His kids are Irish.
Our kids are Irish, and I'm proud to be here.
The difference, as I see it, between England and Ireland is, England may identify that there may be a problem, but they're not willing to help you solve that problem. Ireland will say that yes, there is work to be done, but they'll show you the ways in which you can accomplish that. That is the difference.
Hello.
Hiya.
How are you?
Good, yeah.
We're just doing a documentary.
What documentary?
Yeah, it's about people moving from England. That's Daisy, and she was the one that was forcibly adopted in 2012 in March. She'll be 4 this year, so that'll be a big day for us. We normally just light a candle and we get a bit of cake, so for her. No, I'm not allowed any photographs, so I don't know what she looks like now. It's really sad that I won't be able to see her unless she chooses to see me when she turns 18 and she decides. It's like a grieving process that you go through. Like, it's like she died, but she's still alive, but you grieve. And I had to work through a lot to get through that grief. There was a lot of grief there for her. So that's how I lost Daisy, and all because of things that people did to me as a child. I was in care myself, and I had a really bad upbringing from both my parents through drinking, and my mum used to be a drug user also. And I was brought up in care, and I was known to social services, and over the years I've suffered from depression, I've suffered from mood instability throughout the years, and that's the reasons why I was specifically targeted by social services.
Give her a brush, look. Oh, honey.
Yay! You're doing a good job there, Frankel.
Yeah, look.
2 weeks before Frankel's due date, a social worker came to our house with paperwork to say that he was going to be removed at birth. And within 3 or 4 days, we packed all our life into a van. We hired a van, booked a holiday home in Ireland, and it was the most scariest thing I've ever done ever. Once we got over to Ireland, we didn't know what to expect. It was Christmas. We knew that services weren't going to be open. It was a very lonely, frightening time, because Christmas is like a family thing, and we had plans for Christmas we were going to spend with your family, weren't we? Mm. And all that was just literally destroyed. But we knew that we just couldn't let the social workers take another baby, because we knew what they were going to do. They were going to take it and adopt a baby. And we drove, as we were driving to the ferry port, just feeling sick and stomach going over, and then we got on the ferry, and then we were sat there on the ferry, and then as soon as the engines went boom and they started, oh, it was the best feeling ever, because we knew once that ferry started moving, that was it, they couldn't touch our baby. I won't go back to England. I will never these kids will never go back to England, because we know if we take the children, and I don't know how they'll find out, but social services will take the children.
I know parents that have wanted to and have committed suicide. The worst thing that can happen to most parents is to have your child taken. It's worse than death, you know. So it's wrong. They say Britain has the most robust child protection system in Europe. We can't argue with that. But our response is that Britain may have the most robust child protection system in Europe, but it's the only European country from which families are fleeing. Well, the McDougall's case is a very important case. McDougall's went back, and their 2 Irish-born children were indeed seized. If they win their case, and it is ruled that the children cannot be seized and the children are returned to them, it means that hundreds of other parents here can now take their Irish-born children back to Great Britain to see their grandparents safely. So this is where you are. This is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
unusual. So she's okay. She's just being monitored, is she?
Yeah.
Good. Cramps.
Yeah, she's got constant stomach cramps.
Okay.
She's just having a few complications.
When is she due?
June.
We could drive her down here, no?
We could, yeah. She probably would do that. One day I want to apply for Irish citizenship, because I don't want to be a British citizen anymore after everything that's happened.
You want to renounce it?
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to die a British citizen.
Not only do you want to leave the country, you want to give up your citizenship.
Yeah, because it feels horrible that I'm associated with that.
That's pretty angry, isn't it?
Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, all right, not bad.
It's good to see you. So.
Well, basically, they just says that I've got mild to moderate learning difficulties. It's nothing, well, I don't think it's major. It won't affect my kids' life. Well, I'm pregnant again. I am worried, which is understandable. It's just, it's too much stress and too much worry on my plate at the moment.
This is in Scotland. With the last few weeks before my children were taken, I knew that they were going to be taken, so I thought I'll document every day of their lives. We just filled every day with fun. We'd go somewhere nice, go for something nice to eat, you know what I mean? We'd stay out until the sun went down, you know what I mean? Because we knew they were going to be taken. Yeah, sorry. And like, that's what I was doing there. Like, we were out until about 9 o'clock in the evening because the sun was still shining. I was thinking, this could be the last day I have them. Kerry told me to record it because she knew that it would be useful in the future. Here we go. So you're taking our children away?
So what we're here to do is to make you be aware that it's a very short-term order, it's an emergency order that will
Don't give me that
considered
rubbish.
by children's hearing.
Don't give me that rubbish. So can I get this right? You took my children away because you've been told that we plan to move on.
We've got concerns that you're planning to move
And
on.
that is the reason that you're given. It's hard for me to listen to this.
I love you so much, Chris. Love you and Lachlan so much. Just remember tonight when you're lying sleeping and you're in your bed tonight, just always remember that I'm thinking about you, yeah?
Ben was clinging on to me. Because Ben, he was 4.5, he knew what was going on. You know what I mean? So Ben was just clinging on to me like this because he didn't want to go.
You come and eat, eh? Come on, Ben. Come on.
The system is going wrong a very large amount of the time, but it tends to hit the people who are poorer, who are immigrants, who are perhaps not so intelligent or articulate, the people who are not so influential in society. And the biggest problem is the absence of independent evidence, because all the evidence, all the strings are controlled by the local authority, the Children's Services Authority. And unless you have independent evidence in the system, you're not going to get independent conclusions, because at the end of the day, the judge relies on the experts. The experts are including the social workers who are employees of the local authority.
Social welfare, the welfare of a child, is the most important kind of issue. So if a child is brought to the attention of police or social work or doctors or whatever, because something is wrong, the principle is always, how can we help? Whether that child is offending or whether that child is at risk or in need, the principle is always, how can we help?
Today, there are more than 3,470 children waiting to be adopted. And although it's a truism to say so, the only thing that's going to change that is by recruiting more adopters. To do that, we need the best system of adoption support in place to show potential parents that they'll have a safety net.
Суд принял решение перенести дальнейшее слушание на март. Это было связано с тем, что суд пытается организовать оплату моего адвоката. Мне показалось по их настроению, что немножко они присмирели сейчас. Вряд ли на этом на этом закончилось. Вот. Я сказал, что это дело стоит как бы вот на балансе. То есть, вот, ну, может быть так, может быть этак.
Да.
Так. Мы сейчас сыграем. Другое сыграем. Ну-ка, давай, сядь на краешек. Вот. Не учить, где были, как нужно писать музыку.
Вы боитесь, что его в третий раз заберут?
Да. Да, они могут, так, не боюсь. Это уже может быть реальностью, потому что они нажимают, значит, его забрать, и Гардин, который представляет якобы интересы ребенка, тоже настаивает на этом. То есть это редчайший случай, потому что мало того, что, значит, его они вернули, это редчайший, теперь они хотят его снова забрать.
Если будет такая опасность, вы готовы с ним покинуть Англию?
Да, конечно, готов. Тут я не хочу, как бы сказать, вот, ну, говорить, как это я буду делать, потому что у него стоит порт-алерт. Мне было приказано сдать его паспорт, голландский паспорт. Бросить все, бросить его в школу, бросить все, что у меня есть, и просто бежать, я не знаю, где это такое вообще еще может быть. В Ирландии находится 100 семей, которые бежали из Англии. Люди бегут в Испанию, во Францию, социалы их преследуют и в Испании. Я же должен сына спасти. Мне просто как-то все это вот в голове моей не укладывается. Как-то дома, как-то все вот... Ну.
There are some cases going on where the parents are challenging that adoption order, and that's a very hard one because legally at adoption they are no longer a child of those parents. The courts normally say even if it was wrong to make that initial decision, to upset the child again and move them back is not necessarily the right answer. Because adoption stays with people for the rest of their lives. This isn't a short-term decision. This is making a decision for the next 70, 80 years of that person's life, that they look back on that time in their life and they say, but why was that done? Why was I taken away without the consent of my parents? Why was I not allowed to stay in touch with my family?
As with a lot of these cases that happen in the sheriff courts, they're basically held off for an extra few months. You could go there, you could wait all day, and there's other cases that are more important than yours, so they're seen first. I have to return to Scotland in May for that case. Kerry's 4.5 months pregnant, almost 5 months pregnant now, so the baby will be due in June, and we're hoping that before the baby comes, that the boys will be back in Ireland. We know that even if we don't get the children back straight away, once we go to the courts, we'll be treated fairly and the children will be returned to us eventually, because we've already proved ourselves as good parents in Ireland. Definitely, the children will be traumatised for life, and it will take a long time for them to be normal again once we get them home.
I can't go back. Reason being is because Fife Council will take the baby off me if I return back.